This recording will be focusing on how you can create a warp for your loom without having a warping board. Perhaps you have something called a warping peg. I suggest having 3 of those. If you don't have a warping peg, maybe you have something else in your home that you could also use. One of the things I'm going to use is a chair like this. I'm actually going to use 2 chairs because the back, they kind of look like warping pegs. If you don't have something like that in your house, maybe you can look around and see what other items in your home that you could use to measure your warp. So for the first part of this recording, we're going to use these 2 yarns, 2 different colors, and 1, 2, and I hope you can see the 3rd peg. This is for about a 2-yard warp I'm going to do today, and it's going to be very narrow. What I'm going to do, I've already calculated that I'm going to have 18 threads, 4 blue, 10 gold, and then 4 blue. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to focus down on the table so you can actually see what I'm doing. And the plan is, so you can see here, if you're familiar with making warps, this is going to be where the cross is. Now, of course, I have that fairly close. If I wanted to make a longer warp, I would obviously make that peg a lot farther away. And if you don't have pegs, you can also use something else in your home, like a chair back. Maybe you have a chair that has 2 ends on it that are like a peg. Or perhaps you have some other piece of furniture in your house that you could set up. Maybe even taking, I know people have taken stools, flip them upside down and use the legs of the stool to make the cross. So you can start to think about some things in your house that you could use if you don't have a warping board. All right, I'm going to start with the blue because I'm going to do 4 blue and then 10 gold and 4 blue. I'm doing my little loop. And what I like to do is I like to start not at the cross. This is where the cross is going to be. I like to start at the other end. Now, obviously, this peg could be a lot farther away than it is. That's where it is right now. I've got a 2-yard warp. I might have already said that. I'm going to put the cone on the floor halfway between. And now I can decide, it doesn't matter as long as I'm consistent. I can go behind or I can go in front on the one direction, just so I make sure I do the other direction the same way. So I'm going to go in the front, so that'll be 1, come around, 2, this is 3. So if I forget, I can look and say, okay, which way did I go in the front? This is 3, go back around this way, and then this will be 4. So I now have 4 blue, and the next thing, like I said, I'm going to do gold. I'm going to cut this one off, and I'm going to tie the other one on. Now you could do continuous, but I think it's a little neater if you would cut one off and tie the next one on. So tie that one on, put this one on the floor. If you have a peg holder, that's really nice. So now I said I have to do 10 of these. I'm going to take this and go in the front. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I can see the cross from above. It's very helpful. You can see the path that's going on. Now what goes on over here is not as important. It might cross over. It's okay in the end. It's not going to hurt anything if you kind of get confused on this side. It's where the cross is that you really want to be consistent. Now again, you saw I cut that one. I'm going to tie this one on and do the other 4 next. So now I'm still going the same way. I only have 4 more to do. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I just like to wrap this around. The other thing, take note that I'm not going to wrap it around a little extra just so it doesn't fall off right away. The other thing, if you notice, it's not super tight, it's a little loose. And again, I'm not sure if you can see, I'll be bringing the camera over here for a close-up. But I have my cross now. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next. I'm going to zero in on this part, leave that where it is, and we're going to come over here to the table so we can see what we do next so we don't lose this nice cross and we're able to get the yarn ready to put on our loom. All right, now we're zoomed in a little closer, and you can, if you look there, you can see I have the 4, then the gold, but it's every other thread. It's kind of like your fingers. You could be able to peel each one off, and that's what's going on. Now the very first thing, and I have already cut some yarn, this happens to be wool. I like to use something that's not the same texture as my yarn that I'm making the warp on. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going underneath and I'm pulling everything together, and I'm going to not tie it too tight. I'm just going to tie kind of a square knot. So that's secure. Now you have a couple of options. Some people like to tie that here and then continuing. Normally what I like to do is tie a little loop up here. And if this happens to be wool, it holds pretty well. You could make a square knot if you want, but then you're going to have to take it out. So in this case, it's basically to keep it nice and tidy, and it's a very narrow warp. So I have one here and I have one here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put at least 2 more ties on the other part. But again, the basic thing that I've already done, I have this secure and it's ready. So again, I'll put another tie on the other side of this particular peg and then on down, and then I'll be taking it off. So I'm going to span out a little bit so you can see the whole section again. All right, so I already had my yarn pre-cut, like I said. I'll do another tie here. And then one a little bit farther down, almost to the end of the peg, like that. All right, now it's time to take it off. So what I'm going to do is slide all of this off, and then I do what they call a chain. It's really crocheting with your hands if you're a crocheter. So you can make it as tight or as loose as you want, and obviously this is very short. So I'm going to continue going up until I get almost to the peg, and then it's time to take this off. And we now have our chain ready to put on the loom. So here we are with our chairs. I have one chair here and one chair over there, and I have my cone of yarn. And for this example, I'm just going to go back and forth 10 times. I'm doing an example for you. Did not do any calculating or anything. And like I said before, what I like to do is I like to start at the end where the cross is not going to be. This is where the cross is going to be between this top part of the chair. So I'm going to take this cone like I did before, place it on the floor, and I'm going to put my first loop over there. Now I'm going to decide which way I'm going to go as long as I'm consistent. So here I'm going to go in the front, and then I'm going to wrap it around, and then this time I'm going behind. So I come over here and I make my loop. So that I'm on number 3, I'm in the front, and I wrap it around, and now I'm going to go in the back. So this is 4. Come all the way around, I'm in the front, 5, 5, and now going back, this is 6, wrapping it around again. In the front, we have 7, going again, 8, coming in around, 9. Again, I can still see what's going on here. And this would be 10. So what's nice is I can literally see the cross from above. So this would be 10, and I wrap it around. I'm going to wrap that around a couple of times. So what I would do, as I did in the past, I would take some yarn and I would tie the cross here. Then I would tie each end here. Some people, again, tie it here, tie up those, and then I would also do some ties here. And I could keep on going. I could change the color if I wanted. Again, I could go as far as I could on this particular chair, not making it too tight. You want to be able to take it off when you're finished. So the same procedure that I did with the warping pegs, we would follow through with chairs, stools, whatever other object you might have in your home. And here's a close-up of the cross. You can see that I have the string between it. And if I wanted to, I'd put my fingers through it here. And the yarn goes through and comes out the other way. And now we have every other thread that goes across. I just want you to see the close-up of what it looks like after it's finished.